Hello and welcome to a raw and unfiltered presentation on emerging technologies. My name is Tony Rogers and welcome. I have not spoken about virtual reality, HMDs, near-eye displays, spatial computing devices. In over 12 months, I've touched a little bit around different types of products. I've seen the Varjo, the Valve Index I briefly spoke about in a previous video. But I do want to highlight the Apple device that will be coming out. I think the date was 2022. I'll put that right up here so you can see what that image looks like. They'll have 8K per eye tracking, probably a LiDAR sensor, 8 different cameras, 4 pairs of stereoscopic eyes. It's really amazing, and you probably will postulate that it's going to interact with the Apple iPhone 13, running 7 to 10 trillion calculations per second. It's going to be amazing, transformative, extraordinary. And what we need to do is compare it to the devices currently on the market, and the one that has completely transformed the entire industry across the world for virtual reality is the Oculus Quest 2. The last video I created about the Oculus Quest was around hand tracking, and they've improved it exponentially versus the first iteration, and I'll release a video later this weekend kind of highlighting and showcasing what that is. It's running on the Qualcomm XR2. The hand tracking, machine learning, AI inference models are incredible, and the device itself is now able to sideload certain applications not in the Facebook store. And I think they've sold over 1 million devices. I postulated a year ago they would sell 5 million devices by the second year, and I think they'll probably get there. They're already working on the third iteration of the Oculus Quest 3, probably several different prototypes in between there. It's just going to blow the lid out of the water for virtual reality around the world and increase the adoption rates and the implementation across various different kinds of business market segments in the world. But look at different types of headsets to include the Valve Index. Now, Steam's Valve Index is an incredible device, but it's still tethered, right? That's such a limitation, and you see a lot of people, especially developers and gamers, going and moving over to the Oculus Quest 2, mainly because they can just tether their device via USB-C and run at 90 frames per second, 90 hertz now with the update and the latest firmware. And you have essentially full hand tracking, and this device is exponentially lower in cost than almost every other device in the entire market. Look at $399 to $499. You get a device that has a Qualcomm XR2 with the hand tracking capabilities that are comparable to the Microsoft HoloLens 2 spatial computer at $3,500 or the industrial edition at $4,900, right? That's difficult to compare and contrast two different technologies where one is using an advanced 1 megapixel Azure Connect V4 spatial computer to essentially discern volumetric space and track your hands in real time, and the other is using essentially monochrome cameras to do the same thing with machine learning algorithms. And that's how they're able to drive the cost down so much, because they didn't have all these additional sensors on the device, and in the future they're going to do the same thing to streamline and strip additional components that are unnecessary to reduce the cost and complexity, but increase the adoption rates across the entire industry. So I think, tethered products like the Valve Index will probably go away very quickly unless there's a huge advantage in using them. So let's switch over to the company Varjo and their XR3. They're basically their spatial computing device that allows stereo pass-through via mixed reality. There's a lot of inherent advantages here. In the past, there's limitations on the photon-to-eye latency that we've seen because you have 30 to 60 milliseconds on that stereo pass-through camera, and that makes it introduces motion sickness. It also causes a lot of other issues in games where there's a lot of latency as you're moving. Okay, this particular system for the Varjo, I have not tried it. I need to be upfront and honest with everybody here, but I've received countless videos from developers, users, and corporate clients that are saying it's extraordinary. Now you look at the cost of it, anywhere between end to end $6,000 to $10,000 for the cost for the headset and a computer with a GPU that's powerful enough to run it, and that's unbelievable. It's really, really high. But if you're in an organization, let's say airlines, where you're training pilots, or in the military you're training pilots, you're training mechanics, essentially this new system now, via the specifications they provided on their website and some of the marketing videos, is north of 60 pixels per degree, which is equivalent to human eye resolution, right? So that's extraordinary to think that they've already achieved this with essentially 2 pairs or two cameras, one pair of 4K or 8K cameras outside, and then just integrating all this inside. And on top of that, they also chose to utilize the Gemini V5 hand tracking solution by Leap Motion. And these integrators, these open source cross-platform exposed APIs are transforming the industry as we speak. The future's already here, it's just not evenly distributed, and many of the companies are already implementing these types of solutions, especially in virtual reality. And let me come back full circle to education, implementing not just an expensive solution, but let's say you're an educator in high school or in college, and you could use Oculus Quest. So these are $399, $499, and I think quite often about how the education system is ripe for significant transformation. It's amazing because you think about all the inherent costs of going to college, $4,000 or $5,000 per class, to sit into an enclosed environment where you have a master, somebody who has a high level of expertise in front of you, who is sharing their information in a structured environment. Now, if you have a virtual reality device where you are unable to discern, because it's so ultra photorealistic, and you have hand tracking mechanisms, and in the future you have haptic feedback and eye tracking system with infrared type trackers and face recognition. Now you're in an environment where in virtual reality you can start achieving some of the same metrics in education that we maybe have never seen before. And for somebody like me, I struggled with education mightily when I was a kid. I was always put into special classes. I had a tremendous difficulty in learning in structured environments where I was supposed to sit in a box for 6 to 8 hours a day and learn X, Y, and Z, when my mind, my imagination went all over the place. I wanted to take that radio apart. I wanted to take that CRT apart and put it back together and understand the fundamental building blocks, the components of all these things, and then look at the physics, then look at the electrical engineering, then look at the mechanical structure, how they actually constructed these types of these mechanisms, these components, these products. And when I was a kid, I didn't want to sit down and learn some of the basic stuff. I wanted to go from 1 to 7 to 40 to 6 to, so on and so forth, bounce around. And I think because of virtual reality, because of everything that's happened in the past year, it is forcing parents, interested parties with children, and educators to look out into the world to see what kinds of other possibilities exist and how they can utilize these new transformative technologies, these emerging pieces of technologies that will instantly, transform and disrupt the way we've always done things. And I look across the industry as a whole, all the way across all of them in various different parts of the world, and many people don't like change, right? They don't want to modify the way they've always done stuff. You hear this quite often. Well, I don't want to do that. We've always done it this way. If we do that, that's going to be uncomfortable. I will tell you right now that moving forward in the future, 2021, if you're not comfortable being uncomfortable, you're not going to put yourself in a position to succeed. And virtual reality is one of those amazing, incredible, fantastical technologies that is now here. It has arrived. And as an organization, as an individual, as an entity, a corporate entity, you should be looking into these types of possibilities on a daily basis. You should have organizations within organizations of your organization that is actively perusing the technological minefield and trying to attempt to identify which ones are advantageous to your organizations, which one will return the highest return on investment for your organization, which one may increase your profits from quarter to quarter. Of course, all decisions shouldn't be made on that premise, on those fundamental building blocks, but that's always the things and how things grow, right, from the bottom up. And then from there, you need to go out and select which ones that you believe will help you. And I think that's the biggest problem is organizations and companies spend an inordinate amount of time trying to identify which ones are going to help them. And the bigger the company, the longer that takes. I have this analogy in my head of, blue whales. Look how big how big they are, the biggest creatures that ever exist on the planet, yet they eat the smallest creatures, krill, right? But big blue whales can swim fast, straight forward, but they cannot navigate from side to side very quickly. But krill, conversely, can do that. They can move very fast. And that analogy is applicable to big companies, big corporations that have held a strategic advantage, within some kind of a business segment for a very long period of time. And then you have a smaller company that's very agile. The best analogy I can always provide for this is Blockbuster versus Netflix. Blockbuster had an opportunity to buy Netflix out for $10 million, then $50 million, then $100 million. They said no every single time. Why? Because it was against what they've always done. They were a successful brick and mortar store where people had to come into the store, rent videos, and take them home. And they couldn't foresee a world where everybody was interconnected with new devices. They were high, very low latency. The networks are high speed, and they could watch an entire video. In the past, it used to be 8 gigabytes on Blu-ray and 4 gigabytes before that. But moving all that network data packets into individual mobile components, laptops all over the world, they couldn't see that far out, and look what happened. It didn't take very long for them to go right off of a cliff. And I foresee many, and I repeat, many companies that are on the same ledge right now, right? And they're fighting the same inner demons. They're looking at their past, and they're looking at the past success of their organization and the leaders who led them there. They're listening to the same people, right? And they're going, well, they're saying we shouldn't do that because X, Y, and Z, it's never been done before, and there's so much risk. Well, you need to take risk in your life. You need to take risk in your organization. And right now, virtual reality is very low risk. In the past, it was probably a little bit higher. There was a lot of impediments into adopting the technology within your organization, within your ecosystems, within your platforms. But those things are exponentially decreasing on orders of magnitude every single day. It blows my mind when I talk to leaders, executive CEOs across the world who ask me these questions. Why do you think this is something we should adopt? And I ask them a question right back. Can you provide me a reason why you shouldn't? Right? Are you that profitable right now? Are you that solidified in your organizational structure and success that you do not foresee a moment in the future where you're going to fail? Well, if you don't prepare for that failure now, proactively, reactively, you're going to be trying to wipe that up, and it's going to be too late. There's so many companies out there, small, agile, quick, fast, fail fast organizations that are running through this stuff as quick as they can get it, and they are catching up. It is amazing to see and witness. I have my own AI system here that tracks a lot of different metrics across the internet, and these are one of the major focus areas for me, is looking at historical successful companies that are refusing to adopt new technologies in various different markets: data centers, facility management, chip makers, pharmaceuticals, management, service, all this stuff across all of these different markets. I see the ones that have been historically successful are the ones that are fighting it the most. And then the up-and-comers, the ones that have been around for maybe 10, 12 years, their boards, their executive teams, their employees are much more open to trying new things, to looking at new technologies, especially because of implementations like Zoom. Now, I just graduated with my 3rd master's degree in electrical engineering from the University of Washington. I spent the entire year of the pandemic attending class in a remote environment via Zoom. And I can tell you right now, I'm not a big fan at all. There's no connection there. There's a big disconnect between what the teachers are trying to convey and what the students are doing out here. You have no idea where the students are looking. You have no idea how really focused they are and included into the content that you're trying to transfer. And virtual reality platforms, because of eye tracking, because of face tracking, because of skeletal tracking, because of hand tracking, will be able to provide evaluation type information systems that allow professors and universities to actually track and evaluate whether or not the teacher is conveying information and the students are receiving it, absorbing it, consuming it, right? And then basically reflecting it back out there. And that's really important, I believe. That isn't there right now. What you have really essentially is a teacher sending out a bunch of information and the students all trying to catch as much of it as they can, as quick as they can, and then they go to other students to try to fill in the gaps. Right? There's no video content libraries. There isn't open source information, 50, 75 different videos on machine learning, computer vision, object detection, TensorFlow, AI inference models, electrical engineering, biofeedback systems, simultaneous localization and mapping, perception engines, vertical cavity surface emitting lasers, virtual reality, spatial computing, headsets, light imaging detection and ranging, illumination. You keep going. There's so much information. They have to go try to find it. Now, here's the advantage of living in this day and age in 2021 is if you want to teach yourself something, you can. There's no limitation there. We call it the internet, right? You can go out and teach yourself. Inspiration versus desperation. Those are things I hold very dear to my heart for a very good reason, because if you don't inspire yourself, if you don't empower yourself with a bit of desperation, and I have a lot of that. I grew up in extreme poverty. Right? When I was a kid, I remember going over one of my friend's house, and they had all of those Encyclopedia Britannicas, and I just looked around. I was like, oh my God, this is a library of knowledge. I feel like I'm, all the way back in the Library of Alexandria. I didn't have access to that information. And think about how lucky kids are today, and they don't even know it. They don't even realize it. And it's our jobs as purveyors of knowledge, purveyors of education and wisdom, to share and empower those avenues of opportunity, and to give them these paths, these pipelines to jump into, and so they can learn, and so they can instill confidence within themselves and empower others the same way that we're trying to empower them. You pass the buck down the line. And that's why I believe that virtual reality is the most powerful technology on the planet today, that it is also the most underutilized across every single type of market you can imagine. Right? It's incredible, but it's easy. We can just start doing this today. Your company can start doing this today. You don't have to ask for permission. You just go out and get it done. And there are so many people that will help you. Yours truly as well, but there's many others that know way more than I do. And I've always told this to people. I have 3 master's degrees, and I know less now than I've ever known in my entire life. The more you learn, the less you know. That's keeping a humble mindset, right? That's checking your ego at the door, so you can always learn from other people. And I referenced something I talk about in my master's degree last video in electrical engineering at the University of Washington. It was essentially trying to understand how to implement these things. Essentially, is that you learn so much, but then you understand how much you really don't know. And I was never the smartest person in any of my classes at UW, ever. Matter of fact, I was at the bottom of the totem pole every single time, and I was completely okay with it. I was comfortable with it. You want to know why? Because I had so much to learn from everybody around me. I was not the top dog in spatial computing or computer vision. I mean, I may have had more experience and exposure to certain aspects of it, but these people were geniuses. They're brilliant on so many different levels that I couldn't even quantify. I did not attempt to do so, right? But that's how you have to approach these things, is you always have an empty glass, and the people around you are all masters and exchanging information. That's why it's important to have open lines of communication, to never shut down someone else's ability to voice their opinion, because we don't know who's an Einstein in this world. We have no clue who the next person is that is going to transform the world. Everyone thinks it's Elon Musk, and it absolutely could be. It looks like it is. He's focused on energy density, propulsion systems, space flight, and looking at across the entire galaxy, getting humans off this planet just in case a huge asteroid or meteor or supervolcano or tsunami or something in this world, or a solar flare, electromagnetic pulse, something happens. He's trying to save us, but he's not the only one. There are many other brilliant geniuses who don't consider themselves geniuses, who should. And all those people, to include Elon Musk, should be thinking about virtual reality adoption for training initiatives, for improving return on investment, and for looking at their organizations in an agnostic way, and understanding that we can always improve and iterate every single process that we attempt to navigate on a daily basis. It's a never-ending thing. Learning is lifelong, and I'll leave you with that. Thank you so much for paying attention to the raw and unfiltered presentation today of spatial computing, and as in regards to virtual reality. And I will come back and leave you with this. I do believe in the competitive landscape that Apple will have a very difficult time when they enter the market on the current timeline of 2022 if the Oculus Quest 3 then meets the PlayStation 5 virtual reality headset and various others using the Qualcomm open source XR2 and beyond developer kits. There's going to be a massive stream of new devices that would come into this industry like a flood. It's going to be amazing. And the first one to be successful will be the one that cross-communicates with all of the rest. That is the most important component of everything else. And privacy-related concerns as well. So you have to think about this. Which device are you more likely to use? The one that is tracking all your data, selling all your data to other entities, which many people are completely okay with and comfortable with, especially people under the age of 30. They grew up in this environment. They grew up in this new age, this new digital age. Older individuals are less likely to be more comfortable in those kinds of privacy scenarios. And are you going to implement something else that is a privacy pyramid like Apple, where they don't allow any information externally and they're controlling everything? I'm asking you those questions. Which one of these components will be the ultimate driver of success for a product and ecosystem? Apple has a huge advantage. They have 800 million devices out there, iPhone 12 and next year iPhone 13 and down below, that will all communicate and help with the computational offloading, the transactional computation of the virtual reality device at 60 gigahertz or whatever they come up with. PlayStation 5 will be the same way, 60 gigahertz, essentially wirelessly streaming that information and take it off the device, so there's no battery there. It's a little thinner, lighter, and there's many other competitors that are also going to jump into the fray. But my question to you, as I leave it here, is which one of those aspects is the most important? Form factor, resolution, biometrics, privacy and security, right? And I want you to think about that, and please provide your feedback and comments below. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.